Everyone at Heartland thought they already knew the truth. One mistake, one decision, and suddenly Lou was the person everyone blamed. The whispers started in town. The tension spread across the ranch, and before long it felt like the entire story had already been written. But what if the truth wasn't that simple? What if the person everyone judged was actually hiding something far deeper, and someone else was quietly controlling the story from the shadows? Because in Heartland Season 20, the moment that turned the ranch upside down didn't just test Lou's reputation, it exposed how quickly people can believe a lie when it sounds convincing enough. The trouble at Heartland didn't begin with a loud argument or a shocking accident. Instead, it started with a moment that seemed small at first, but quickly grew into something much bigger. Early one morning, tension was already building around the ranch. Work had been stressful, plans were changing, and everyone was trying to keep things under control. That's when a decision made by Lou suddenly became the center of attention. Word began to spread that Lou had made a choice that put the ranch at risk. Some people believed she ignored a warning. Others said she pushed forward with a plan that should have been stopped. The details were unclear, but the story moved fast through the community. By the end of the day, many people were already convinced that Lou was responsible for everything that went wrong. At first, Lou tried to explain her side, but something about the situation made her stop herself. Instead of fighting every rumor, she stayed quiet. For the people around her, that silence felt strange. Lou had always been strong and outspoken. She was the type of person who stood up for herself without hesitation. Yet this time, she didn't push back the way everyone expected. Amy noticed it almost immediately. She could see the pressure building on her sister's face, even when Lou tried to act calm. Every conversation about the situation made the atmosphere at the ranch heavier. It felt like everyone was waiting for the truth, but no one knew where to find it. Meanwhile, the story outside the ranch kept growing. In town, people began to repeat the same version of events again and again. With each retelling, the blame on Lou became stronger. Soon it wasn't just a mistake people were talking about. It was a failure, and in their eyes, Lou was the one responsible. What nobody realized at that moment was that the story spreading through Heartland was missing something important. A small detail, a hidden piece of the truth that hadn't been revealed yet. And the person who knew that truth best was staying very quiet. As the days passed, the pressure around Lou only grew stronger. At the Heartland Ranch, every conversation seemed to circle back to the same problem. People spoke in quiet voices, sharing their thoughts about what had happened. Some believed Lou had simply made a bad decision. Others thought she had taken a risk that never should have been taken in the first place. No matter which version people believed, the result was the same: Lou was the one everyone blamed. What made the situation even harder was the silence between the people who had always supported her. At dinner, the usual laughter around the table felt different. Conversations stopped the moment Lou walked into the room. No one wanted to accuse her directly, but the doubt was there. It hung in the air like a storm that refused to pass. Amy tried to stay calm and look at the situation carefully. She had known her sister her entire life, and something about this story didn't feel right. Lou had made mistakes before, just like anyone else, but this time things felt different. There was a strange gap in the story, something missing that no one could clearly explain. Still, even Amy couldn't ignore how serious the situation had become. The ranch had already been through many challenges, and another mistake could cause real damage. That fear made people quicker to judge and slower to trust. Meanwhile, Lou carried the weight of it all quietly. Instead of arguing with everyone, she focused on the work that needed to be done. She woke up early, stayed busy, and avoided long conversations about the incident. To many people, that silence looked like guilt. They assumed she had no defense left. But the truth was more complicated. Lou knew something the others didn't. There was a reason she wasn't fighting back against every accusation. A reason she allowed the blame to stay on her shoulders. And that reason had everything to do with someone else involved in the situation, someone who had already started shaping the story in their favor. That person was Nathan. At first, Nathan seemed calm and cooperative. He explained what had happened in a clear and confident way, telling everyone how things had gone wrong. His version of events sounded believable, And because Lou wasn't saying much, people began to accept his story as the truth. At first, Nathan's story sounded solid. He spoke with confidence, repeating the same version of events every time someone asked what happened. According to him, Lou had ignored an important warning and pushed forward with a risky decision. He made it sound like he had simply been there, watching the situation unfold while trying to prevent the mistake. To many people in town, his words felt honest. After all, he had no reason to lie, or so they thought. But the longer the story stayed the same, the more a few small details began to stand out. Amy was one of the first people to notice it. She had heard Nathan explain the situation several times, and something about the timing didn't feel right. In one conversation, Nathan said he arrived late and saw everything happen suddenly. In another moment, he spoke as if he had been there from the very beginning. It was a tiny difference, but Amy couldn't ignore it. Meanwhile, others around the ranch also started noticing things that didn't match Nathan's version. One worker remembered seeing Nathan earlier than he claimed. Another mentioned that a piece of equipment had already been moved before Lou even arrived. These details were small on their own, but together they created a quiet sense of doubt. Still, no one wanted to accuse Nathan too quickly. The situation was already tense, and everyone believed the truth had already been decided. Lou had been blamed, and Nathan had been the one explaining what went wrong. Changing that story would mean admitting they might have judged too fast. Through all of this, Lou remained silent, but her silence began to look different now. At first, it seemed like she was hiding from the truth. Now it started to feel like she was waiting for something, almost as if she knew that, sooner or later, the real story would reveal itself without her needing to fight. Amy could see it in her sister's eyes. Lou wasn't defeated. She was patient, and that patience was about to matter more than anyone expected. Because the deeper people looked into the story, the clearer it became that something about Nathan's explanation didn't just feel strange. The turning point didn't arrive with a loud confession or a dramatic confrontation. Instead, the truth began to appear slowly, through the small details people had ignored before. At Heartland, those little details started forming a picture that no one could ignore anymore. It began when one of the ranch workers mentioned something unusual about the day of the incident. He clearly remembered seeing Nathan near the equipment long before the situation went wrong. That memory didn't match Nathan's story at all. According to Nathan, he had arrived later and had only witnessed the mistake after it happened. But if he had been there earlier, then his version of events suddenly didn't make sense. Amy decided to look deeper. The more questions she asked, the more strange answers she found. Another worker confirmed that Nathan had been moving things around before anyone else arrived. Even more surprising, someone remembered hearing Nathan argue about the plan earlier that morning. These details had seemed unimportant at the time, but now they started to reveal something much bigger. For the first time, people around the ranch began to question the story they had believed from the start. The whispers in town slowly changed direction. Instead of asking what Lou had done wrong, people started wondering why Nathan's story kept shifting. Every time he explained the situation, one small part sounded slightly different. A time changed. A detail moved. A memory suddenly appeared that hadn't been mentioned before. Lou noticed the shift too, but she still didn't rush to defend herself. She had carried the blame quietly for days, and now she simply watched as the truth slowly found its way into the open. Amy finally confronted Nathan with the new information. At first, he tried to stay calm and repeat the same explanation he had given before. But this time it didn't sound as convincing. The more questions he faced, the harder it became for him to keep his story together. For the first time since the incident, Nathan looked nervous, and in that moment, the people standing around him began to realize something they hadn't considered before. The story that blamed Lou might never have been the truth at all. It might have been a lie from the very beginning. The tension at Heartland finally reached a breaking point. For days, questions had been growing, and the story Nathan told was starting to fall apart piece by piece. What once sounded clear and believable now felt uncertain. People began to realize that too many details didn't match, and the more they thought about it, the harder it became to ignore the possibility that something had been hidden from them. The moment that changed everything happened during a serious conversation at the ranch. Amy, along with a few others, decided it was time to ask Nathan direct questions. No more rumors, no more guessing. They wanted clear answers about what really happened that day. At first, Nathan tried to stay confident. He repeated the same story he had shared before, explaining that Lou had pushed forward with a risky decision and ignored the warning signs. But this time, the people listening weren't willing to accept the explanation so easily. Amy brought up the details that had started raising doubts: the timing, the equipment that had been moved earlier, and the workers who had seen Nathan on the ranch before the situation unfolded. Nathan hesitated. It was only a small pause, but everyone noticed it. For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer ready. The calm confidence he once showed began to fade, and the room grew quiet as people waited for him to explain the contradictions. The more questions he faced, the more pressure built around him. His story started changing again, small adjustments that only made things worse. One moment he said he had tried to stop the situation, and the next moment he claimed he wasn't close enough to do anything. The explanations no longer fit together. Then the truth finally slipped through. Under the weight of everyone's questions, it became clear that Nathan had not been as innocent as he claimed. He had been involved much earlier than he admitted, and some of the choices that led to the problem were actually connected to him. By shifting the blame onto Lou, he had protected himself while letting everyone believe she was responsible. The realization spread quickly across the room. For days, Lou had carried the blame alone while Nathan allowed the story to grow around her. And now, as the truth came out, the people who once doubted her began to see how easily they had been misled. Nathan's lies were no longer hidden, and suddenly, the entire story at Heartland looked completely different. After the truth about Nathan began to surface, the mood at Heartland changed almost instantly. The same people who had once whispered about Lou now stood in quiet disbelief. For days they had believed one story without questioning it, and now they were forced to face the uncomfortable truth they had judged too quickly. The ranch felt different that evening. The tension that had filled the air was replaced by a heavy silence. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. Lou had carried the blame while knowing that the story being told wasn't the full truth. Amy was the first to approach her. She had defended Lou as much as she could, but even she had struggled to understand why her sister stayed quiet for so long. Now, looking back at everything that had happened, Amy finally understood that Lou's silence had never been weakness. It had been strength. Lou slowly explained that she realized very early that Nathan's story didn't match what really happened. She had seen the way he shaped the story, carefully placing the blame on her before anyone else had the chance to question it. But instead of starting a loud argument that could divide everyone at the ranch, Lou chose to wait. She believed that if the truth was strong enough, it would reveal itself. And that's exactly what happened. The small details people started noticing, the memories workers shared, and Amy's careful questions all helped bring the real story into the light. Lou didn't need to shout or fight to prove herself. She trusted that eventually the truth would be impossible to hide. For the people around her, that realization brought a mix of relief and regret. Many of them had doubted Lou when the pressure was at its highest. Now they understood how difficult it must have been for her to stand there, hearing the accusations while knowing the full story couldn't stay hidden forever. Nathan's lies had caused more than just confusion. They had shaken the trust inside the Heartland family. But as the truth settled in, one thing became clear to everyone watching the situation unfold. Lou had never been the problem. In fact, her quiet patience had protected something far more important: the unity of the ranch and the people who called Heartland home. And after everything that happened, that strength might be exactly what the family needed to move forward. In the end, the truth didn't just clear Lou's name, it changed how everyone at Heartland saw the situation. The moment Nathan's lies were exposed, people began looking back at everything that had happened with new eyes. The rumors, the quick judgments, the quiet doubts, all of it suddenly felt unfair. For Lou, the experience left a deep mark. Even though the truth finally came out, the days she spent carrying the blame were not easy to forget. Hearing people question her choices, watching trust slowly fade, and feeling the weight of the entire situation had tested her in a way she had never experienced before. But instead of letting that pain divide the family, Lou chose to move forward. At Heartland, mistakes and challenges had always been part of life on the ranch. What truly mattered was how the family faced those challenges together. This time, the lesson was clear for everyone: believing the first story you hear can sometimes lead you away from the truth. Amy, Jack, and the others knew they had learned something important from this moment. Trust isn't just about standing beside someone when things are easy. Real trust means believing in someone even when the situation looks confusing. Nathan's actions left behind a reminder that honesty matters more than appearances. For a while, his confident story had convinced everyone. But in the end, the truth was stronger than the lie he tried to build. And Lou's quiet strength proved something powerful. Sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the one speaking the loudest. Sometimes it's the one who waits patiently, knowing that the truth will find its way to the surface. As Heartland moves forward into the future, the ranch family is stronger, wiser, and more united than before. But the events that once placed all the blame on Lou will remain a story the ranch will never forget. Because in the end, the truth didn't just reveal Nathan's lies. It reminded everyone what loyalty and trust at Heartland truly mean.